Hi and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you how to build C++ user interface application step by step so that it is very easy to understand, and we are also going to fix a few bugs together. But before I start, I just wanted to let you know that recently I created an option for you to buy me a coffee, or actually not a coffee but a soy milk latte with cinnamon and a cookie. That sounds great. So you can do that as a sign of appreciation for all the hard work that I put into this channel. So if you like my content, if it helps you in any way, consider that small gesture of gratitude, because that would mean a lot to me, and I am going to leave that link in the description. But if you don't, it's okay. I am still going to continue providing free educational content on this channel for you nonetheless. So that is all that I wanted to say, and now let's jump into the video and let me show you the application that we are going to build. So here I have a quiz game that we are going to build together, and I want you to notice its main parts. Here we have a question and then 3 different answers. Only one of these 3 is correct. So when you pick your answer, you click on Confirm Answer button, and if that answer is correct, you will get a point. So let's check if this answer is correct. It is, because I got a point. And then if you select an answer which is not correct, you will not get a point. And then one more thing that I want to show you is the following. So let's answer this question here. What is the longest river in the world? Let's say Nile. And if I click confirm, I will get the point because that is correct answer. But if I keep clicking on this confirm answer, as you can see, I will continue getting points. So that is also one bug that I want to fix together with you. By the way, while we are talking about the Nile River, I want to tell you that in a few days I am going on a vacation to Egypt. And during that time, I will not be posting videos on my YouTube channel, but I will be posting regularly on my Instagram. So if you want to be part of that adventure, and if you want to see together with me the pyramids and the Nile River and all the beautiful beaches that I will visit in Egypt, and the food, the people, the culture, and so many more things, you can add me on Instagram. My nickname is CodeBeauty, and the link will be in the description. So that is the application that we are going to build, and for that I'm going to use Rad Studio and C++ Builder. I will leave a link in the description that you can use in order to download it and try it out for free. And it's very easy to build user interface applications using C++ Builder, as you will see. But if you're not familiar with it at all, I recommend you to watch this video. I will link it here and also in the description, because that video is the introduction into building user interface applications in C++. So after you watch that video, you can come back and watch this one. So as I said, I will divide this into simple steps and explain every single one. So let's create a multi-device application and let's see what those steps are. So inside my C++ Builder, I will click on File, and then New Multi-Device Application with C++ Builder. And then here I am going to select Blank Application and click OK. And it should create our project. Okay, so here we have our project. And now let's see what are the steps to building this quiz application. So since I want to build a quiz application that consists of questions and answers, the first step would be to create questions class. So let's do that. I am going to switch to my unit1.cpp. Okay, and I am going to create that class here. Now, a quick tip: in order to understand the code that we are going to write, now you need to understand object-oriented programming. You need to know about classes and constructors, default constructors, and so on. And I already have a course about that, which I'm going to link here and also in the description. So if you need help with the code that we are going to type, make sure to watch that course first. So let's create a class called question, like this. Okay, now what every question in our program will have is the text of the question, and then it will have 3 potential answers. And then what we also want to store is the information about which answer is the correct one. So let's create those members inside this questions class. But since we will be accessing those members outside of the class, we need to make them public. So I will first say public, like this. And then let's create char pointer called text. So this is going to be the text of our question. Now let's create char pointer, which will be called answer, or actually answer 1, because we have 3 answers. And I am going to copy this line and paste it 2 more times so that we have answer 2 and then answer 3 as well. And then the last thing will be the information about which one of these 3 answers is the correct answer to this question here. So let's create an integer property called correct answer, like this. And here we are going to store either number 1 or 2 or 3. Okay, so after I have created these properties, let's also create a constructor. So I want to create 2 constructors. The first one will be default constructor. So I will say question, like this. Okay, so this is going to be our default constructor. And the second constructor that I want to create will be custom constructor that will receive all of the values and assign them to these properties. So I am going to copy this line, paste it here. And this second constructor, as I already said, will receive parameters. So it will receive char pointer text. It will receive char pointer answer 1, and then char pointer answer 2, and char pointer answer 3, and also integer correct answer. So let's assign these values that we received inside our constructor to these properties here. So I am going to say that the text property is equal to the text that we received inside our constructor. And then let's assign this one. So let's say that answer 1 is equal to ans1. I'm going to copy this line 2 more times here and here. So answer 2 will be equal to this answer 2 parameter, and then answer 3 will be equal to answer 3, and then correct answer will be equal to correct answer, like this. So with this, we have successfully created question class together with all of its properties, default constructor, and then also custom constructor that we will use in order to create questions for our quiz application. One quick tip is to run your application after every single step so that you can see if you have any errors, because it is going to be much easier to fix them now than to fix them later when you have multiple errors from many different steps. So now I'm going to run my program. Okay, as you can see, I don't have any errors, and if you also don't have any errors, that means that we have successfully finished the first step, and now it is time to move to the second step. And the second step is generating the questions. So now we are going to generate the actual data, the questions that we are going to ask our user. So let's create a function called load questions, and that function will return a queue of questions. Now, if you are not familiar with queues data structure, make sure to watch this video. I will also link it in the description. That video is going to explain what a queue data structure is, but basically a queue is a data structure that allows you to push elements at the end and then you can remove them from the front. Okay, so in order to use queue data structure, you need to say here include queue, like this. So now we can create the function that I mentioned, and the return type of that function will be stdq. So I will say stdq like this, and it is going to be a queue of question, okay, and I will call that function load questions like this. Okay, so let me very quickly find a few questions on the internet that we are going to use for this quiz application, and then I will be back to explain the code. So I have created 3 questions, and for that I used the constructor that we built in the previous step. That constructor receives 5 parameters. It receives the text of the question, and then first answer, second answer, and third answer. And then the 5th parameter is the information about which one of these 3 answers is the correct one. So that is exactly what I have passed on the creation of these 3 questions. So as you can see here, the first question says, which color does not appear on the Olympic rings? That is the first parameter. And then I have passed black, orange. Let's scroll a little bit. Okay, and then the third answer is green. And then I have passed also the information about which one of these 3 answers is the correct one. And here it says that the correct answer is the second one, which means that orange does not appear on the Olympic rings. And then I have done the same for this second question, and then for third question as well. And then I have created a queue of question called questions, and I have pushed those 3 questions into my queue, and then I will return that queue of questions from this function called load questions. So that is the second step. And if you need to generate more questions, you can use the same approach that I demonstrated here. You would just add question number 4, and then you would construct that question and push it into the queue, and then question number 5 and 6 and 7 and so on, however many questions you need. So one last thing that I want to do is I want to run this application in order to make sure that I don't have any errors, and I don't. So that means that we have successfully finished step number 2. The third step is building the user interface. So let's switch to this design mode here. And now I'm going to add all of the controls that we need for this application. So the first one will be label, where we are going to show the text of our question. So I will add label. Let's place it here, for example. And then I need 3 radio buttons for 3 answers. Let's add that as well. So radio button 1, I will add it here, and then let's add 2 more. Okay, here is the second one, and then the third one. Okay, and then I need also a button that I will use in order to confirm my answer. So I will say button here, and I will put that button like this. Okay, and then I need 2 more things. I need 2 labels, and the first one I will place it here. It will say just points, and then we are going to use the second label in order to show actual points to our user. So let's add another one. Okay, and I will put it here like this. Okay, so let's make this form a little bit smaller like this. Okay, now one thing that I also want to do is I want to change the names of these controls, because now they have default names. So label 1, radio button 1, button 1, label 2, and so on. And what I want to be here instead is I want this label here to be called, for example, question label, and then this radio button 1, I will call it answer 1 radio button, and then answer 2 radio button, and so on. So let's do that. I'm going to select this label 1, and in this object inspector, I will find name property. So here is name label 1. I will change that to question label like this. And then let's do the same for our radio button 1. Instead of naming it radio button 1, I will call it answer 1 radio button, like this. Okay, and then let's change the name of our second radio button. I will call it answer 2 radio button. And then the third one, you guessed it, it's going to be called answer 3 radio button. Okay, and then this confirm button here, that is the name that I want to give it. So I will say confirm button, like this. And then this label 2. For this label 2, I will change another property, and that is text property. So let's find that. Okay, and instead of calling it label 2, I will say points and then column sign. Okay, and then this label 3, I will call this label points label, because this one is going to show always this points text, and then here we want to change the value so that it represents the number of points that our user has. So here I will say that the name of my label is points label, like this. Okay, perfect. So let's run our program. And as you can see, here is the interface of our application. And one thing that I'm noticing here is that this answer 1 radio button text is not visible entirely. So what I'm going to do, I am going to increase the size of this, and then this one as well, and this third answer. And then I'm going to also increase the size of this questions label, because we want to be able to see the entire question. So if I run my program again, as you can see, the entire answer text is visible. So we have successfully fixed the user interface error that we had. And one more thing that I want to explain is the default behavior of a radio button control. So when you select a specific answer, these remaining 2 answers are going to be unselected by default. And that is something that we didn't have to code, because that is the default behavior of a radio button control. So we already have that behavior without having to do anything, without having to write any code. So when I select an answer, the remaining 2 are unselected by default. So let's close this program, and if you have successfully built your application and if it looks like mine, that means that you have successfully finished step 3, which is building user interface. And now we can move to step 4. Step number 4 is to connect this user interface with the actual data. So now I want to connect this form with the questions and answers that we generated. So let's move to this unit1.cpp, and here I want to create 2 global variables. Now, why I want those variables to be global? Well, as you already know, if you create a variable inside a function, which means locally, like we did here, for example, or here, that variable is going to be available only inside the scope of that function, which is from this curly bracket here until this curly bracket here. But what I want to do is I want to have those variables that I will create, I want to have them available inside many different functions. So I want to access those variables from different functions. So let's create them globally. I will create them here. So I will create std q of question, and I will call that variable questions. Let's copy this name. Okay, so that is the first variable that I want to create, and the second variable will be just one question, and I will call it current question, like this. And now I will use these 2 variables in order to connect these questions that we generated here with our user interface. And I will use these 2 variables inside this function here. And if you read the name of this function, you will notice that this function here is actually the constructor of our form 1. So this function will be invoked on the construction of this form here, which is basically when we run our program. So inside this function, what I want to do is I want to load all of these questions that we generated inside this questions queue, and then I want to take the first question and load it inside this current question variable, and I will show that first question on my user interface. So let's do that. As I already said, the first step is to load these questions into this variable here. So I will say questions is equal to load questions, like this. So that is the first step. And then the second step is to take the first question from this queue here and put it into this variable here. So I will say that current question is equal to questions.front, like this. So this line of code here means please take the question that is at the front of this queue here and put it into current question variable. Now, after we have stored our current question into this variable, I will use that variable in order to show the first question to our user. Now, one thing that we did in the previous step is we named all of these controls according to their purpose. So now I'm going to use those names in order to access those controls from my code. So this label is called question label. This is called answer 1 radio button, answer 2 radio button, answer 3 radio button, confirm button, and then points label. So let's switch again to unit1.cpp and let's use those names in order to access those controls and put the actual data into them. So I will say that questions label, its text property will be equal to current question dot text, like this. And make sure to use this symbol here because this is a pointer. Okay, so with this we have successfully loaded the text into our questions label, and now let's do the same with the answers to our questions. So I will return to my design view and I will copy the name of my answers 1 radio button so that I don't make a typo, and then I will go back to my unit1.cpp, and here I will say that answer 1 radio button, its text property is equal to current question dot answer 1, like this. And let's do the same for the second answer and the third answer as well. I will just adjust the name. So I will say answer 2 radio button and then answer 3 radio button. And here I will say answer 2 and answer 3. Okay, so let's run our program to see what we have achieved so far. Okay, and as you can see, we have multiple errors, so let's fix those first. And as you can see here, the first error says use of undeclared identifier load question. That is this error here. And then the second error is use of undeclared identifier questions label. And that error is here. So to return to our first error, this function here, load question, it is not actually called load question, but load questions with S. So I'm going to correct that error. And then the second error was here, and it is not questions label, it is question label. And in order to check that, you can go back to your design and then click on question label. And here we are going to use this name property in order to access that control from the code. So once more, I will return here and I will paste the exact name here. So if I run my program now, let's see what's going to happen. As you can see, we have 3 more errors, and those are, as you can see here, it says no member named text in T radio button. That is because we named this property with lowercase t, and we should use capital T. And we have also copied our code, so we have made the same mistake on these two questions as well. So that means that you should not copy the code. So if I run the program, we finally get the result that we expect, and that is a question here and then 3 answers inside our radio buttons. So let's close this program and let me do one last thing for this step. So here, after I have assigned the text of our question and of our answers, what I want to do is I want to remove the first question from my queue because we already have shown that question to our user. And in order to do that, we use pop function. So I will say questions. This is my queue, and I will say pop like this. Okay, and let's add one empty line here like this. And with this, nothing should change on our interface, but we are just removing the question that we already showed to our user. We are removing it from our queue, which means that our user will not see it again after he answers that question. Step number 5 is to define what is going to happen when we change our selection. So when we click on our answers. And for that, we are going to use special functions, which are called event handlers. And those are just like regular functions, except that they are going to be invoked when we click on a specific answer. So how do we do that? How do we create those functions? Well, it's actually very easy. I will switch to Design tab. And in order to create event handler for the click of this first answer, I will just double click on it. And as you can see, it has created this answer 1 radio button change function, and it is currently empty, but here we are going to define the behavior that we want when we change our selection to answer 1. But let's first create these event handlers for our answer 2 and answer 3. I will go back to my Design tab, and I will double click on my answer 2, and as you can see, now we have 2 event handlers. And then let's do the same for this third answer. Okay, so here we have created 3 event handlers for our 3 answers. And what I want to do now is I want to create one more global variable. I will do it here. So here I will create a variable called selected answer. It will be of type int. So let's say selected answer. Okay, and inside this variable, I just want to store the information about which answer our user has selected. So when this function here, when this event handler is executed, this event handler called answer 1 radio button change, that means that our user has selected answer 1. So I will store inside this selected answer variable number 1. And then in this second situation, I will store number 2. And then for this third handler, I will store number 3. And I will explain how we will use this information, how we will use this selected answer variable in the next step. So keep watching. But there is one more thing that I want to do for this step, and that is to run our program in order to make sure that we didn't make any errors. And the code that we have written did not made any visible difference to our program, but it was just a preparation for the next step, which is step number 6, and that is handling this confirm button behavior. So let's do that. So in order to complete step number 6, let's switch to our Design tab, and here I want to create a handler for my confirm button. And in order to create a handler, I will just double click on that button. And as you can see, here we have a function called confirm button click. So here we are going to describe what will happen when our confirm button is clicked. So what should happen logically? What should happen when you click on confirm? Well, there are a few things that should happen. The first one is I want to check if my user has selected the correct answer, and if he has, I want to give him a point. So let's do that first. I will say if this selected answer that we prepared in the previous step, so if that selected answer is equal to the value that is stored inside current question and inside its property called correct answer, so I will paste that here as well. So if our selected answer is equal to current question correct answer, what I want to do is the following. I want to increase the number of points that my user has. But one thing that we have not created is a variable where we are going to store the points for our user. So let's do that. I am going to create that as a global variable as well. I will create it here and it will be of type int. So I will say int points. Okay, and I will initially say that points are equal to 0 because when the user starts the program, he has 0 points. So let's say that if our user has selected the correct answer, we are going to increase his points. And then I also want to show that information on my user interface. So I will go to my design tab and I will take the name of this control here. It is called points label. Okay, and I will say here that points label, its text property is equal to points, like this. And this here should be capital letter T. So let's run our program and let's see what has changed. Okay, so if I select orange, because that is the color that does not appear on the Olympic rings, and I click on this confirm button, as you can see, we have received 1 point. So that is the behavior that we have achieved so far with this code here. The next thing that should happen after this is we should check if our queue of questions is empty, and if it is not empty, we are going to take the next question that is at the front of the queue, and we are going to show that next question to our user, and then we will remove it from the queue. So let's do that. Let's say if this questions queue is not empty, like this, here I want to do what I just explained, and that is I want to take the question at the front of the queue and show it to my user. So I will say that current question is equal to questions dot front, like this. So with this we have taken the first question at the front of the queue and we have assigned it to our current question, and now I want to show that on my user interface. So I will use the same code that we had here. Okay, and I will say here that now my questions label, its text, will be equal to the text inside this current question, and then I will show answer 1 of my current question as a text of my first radio button, and then answer 2 as a text of the second radio button, and then answer 3 inside this third radio button. So let's see what has changed after we added this code here. So if I run my program and I select black, for example, and click confirm button, as you can see, we have not received any points, but we have switched to the next question. Now, one thing that I don't like is that this first answer is selected by default, and that is because in the previous question we selected that button and it remained selected. So that is why this radio button here is checked. So that is one bug that I want to fix. So let's close this program and let's say after we have loaded the next question, there are 2 things that we have to do. The first one is that I want to pop that question. So I want to remove that question from this questions queue. So I will say questions.pop, And the second thing is the bug that we noticed, and that is that these buttons are remaining checked. If they were checked in the previous question, they remain checked in the next question. So I want to fix that as well. So I will say answer 1 radio button, its property called is checked is equal to false, and I will do the same for the remaining 2 buttons. So I will say also that answer 2 is not checked, and then answer 3 is not checked as well. So I basically want to reset these 3 buttons. Okay, and let's format these buttons so that our code is a little bit prettier. Okay, so let's run our program again. And I'm going to select orange, confirm, and as you can see, I received 1 point. But one more thing that happened is that the selection here has been cleared. So now I can select again. We don't have that previous choice remaining in our next question. So we have successfully fixed 1 bug. So let's run our program again in order to demonstrate 2 more bugs that I want to fix together with you. And the first bug is on this screen here. If you can notice it, write me in the comment section. So the first bug is this part here. It says points label instead of showing 0 as the default number of points that our user has when he starts the program. So that is the first bug that I want to fix. I am going to close the program and I will return to my form constructor, and at the end I will say that my points label, its text property will be equal to 0 when our program first starts, or you can also use this variable here because it is initialized to 0 when we start our program. So that is the fix for the first bug, and if I run my program, as you can see, we have successfully fixed the bug, and now we get the value of 0 when we start our program. So let's get 1 point. Let's say, for example, orange, and then confirm. And let's say, for example, that I don't know the answer here. So I'll select Na2Cl and I don't get a point. And then let's say also that I don't know the answer here. So I will click on Amazon and click confirm. So I have finished answering to all 3 questions and I have gained only 1 point. But what happens if your user is a malicious user and he tries to hack your program? So what happens if he tries doing something like this? So now I'm going to change my answer and I will try Mississippi. Okay, that is not the correct answer as well. So let's try Neil then, and then click confirm. Whoa! Something has happened. We have gained 1 point even though we have previously answered this question. So if I keep clicking on confirm, as you can see, I will gain a lot of points, which is another bug that I want to fix together with you. So the way that I want to fix this bug is I want to disable this button once my user has answered to all of the questions, and if I don't have any more questions in my queue, I will just disable the button and I will say game over or the end. So let's do that. Let's close the program. And here inside this confirm button click handler, I will add else situation. So when our queue is not empty, we are doing this. But if our queue is empty, so if we don't have any more questions for our user, we will define what is going to happen inside this else block. So here I'm going to say confirm button, its property called enabled will be equal to false. So I want to disable my confirm button if we don't have more questions inside our queue. And one more thing that I want to do is I want to say, for example, confirm button, its text property should be changed to the end or game over. So if I run my program again, let's see if we fixed the problem. So I'll say orange and then NaCl2, and here I will click, for example, Mississippi and then Neil, but I don't have the chance to click on this button anymore. And by doing that, by disabling this button, we fixed the bug that we had. So now we cannot gain any more points after we answer this last question only once. So that is the application that I wanted to build together with you. All the links and details will be in the description. And I also want to give you a few tips, a few suggestions on how you can improve this program and practice programming on your own. I want to give you two suggestions. The first one is that you don't have to give 1 point for every single question. Maybe some questions are going to be harder, so you want to give, for example, 2 points or 3 points. So that is going to be the first suggestion. You are going to assign the amount of points that every question has, and once the user answers that question correctly, you are going to give him that many points. Now, the second suggestion is you can make this quiz application as a school test. So you don't show the result to your user immediately. You show him the result only after he finishes the entire quiz. So I'm leaving that to you to play with different options and practice programming on your own. And if you have any questions, feel free to write me in the comment section. And please give this video a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm and share it with your friends. And if you want to help me to make this something that I can do full-time, hopefully in the future, and to create a lot more videos like this one, consider using the link in the description to get me a coffee or a cookie or something like that. I would appreciate it very much, so thank you if you do that. And also thank you for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye!